seems I'm live. I'm gonna try to plug my phone up and see if it will hold a charge. I don't know if it will or not. My phone is dying a slow and painful death. While everybody tries to file in, let me go and make sure that this is trying to keep me charged. That is a good thing. Okay. So a lot of you have seen my squabbles today between Facebook or YouTube or some of the other places I hunt. A lot of you all are seeing my frustration today. And I do not apologize for it, because it's important that we talk about these things and see what frustrates others and try to find a way of cohabitating so that we can understand each other's struggles and discuss them, rather than running away and saying, oh, we can't do this. We should and can. So let's give this a moment to see if anybody jumps in. It's an odd timing for me. Ooh, look at my cow lick. I've got somebody with me, but I'm on my phone today. So unless you tell me who you are and that you're with me, I cannot tell. And I'm grabbing my gummy candies because I need support. I've got a lot of talking to do, so I think I need something sweet to do that talking. And I want more people to trickle in, but I'm completely okay having this conversation and just leaving it up so that people can revisit it over and over again. Because this is really important. And for people that go, I don't like to talk about that political jargon, that political crap. That political crap is changing our world so quickly that if we don't start to talk about it, by the time we do, it's going to be too late to address any concerns that we have. So we need to be talking about this. And for the people asking me where I got the statement that the White House put out, it was on whitehouse.gov. Hi, Hope. Glad to see you. The statement that I got and posted earlier and had my little mini rant about, I got it from whitehouse.gov. It was released from the press, the press secretary, not the direct press secretary, what does he call himself? I have notes. When the president stated it, the guy responsible for the page came back and said, hey, the truth's the truth. I'm sorry, but a prediction about the way the president thinks this virus may or may not spread is not the truth. It's an opinion. It may even be a mildly educated opinion, but it's not the truth. And the insinuation that he sees the unvaccinated as a population that has placed themselves on the altar to die for nothing and to die over stupidity, it kind of irritated me quite a bit. If you can't tell, it irritated me quite a bit, because I am one of the people that are in the category of medically incapable of taking this thing because of the specific neuromuscular disorder that I have, and because of the way that my body handles spike proteins with illness and the inflammation issue that comes with RSD. I am about 95% positive, between the discussions I've had with specialists, that if I go and allow somebody to give me a jibby jab, the response from my body, because of how my neuromuscular disorder responds to spike proteins and inflammation, I will most likely be one that has some kind of thrombo-related incident, immediate heart attack, brain bleed, stroke. That will be me. You all have seen me long enough now with my health issues to see the very unusual and unique problems that I have. There's very little research on my disability, but I know my body and I know how it responds, and I know that I will be one they'll have a negative end. Just from the research study and how my body has responded to other things that are very similar. I have a lot of reactions to a lot of vaccines. This one puts me in an added risk because of the spike protein issue. And the funny thing is when I try to talk to people about that, they immediately put me into an anti-vaxxer category, even though I have done so much research to see if I was a candidate, to see if it was necessary that I do this, to see if the possibilities of the positive outweigh the possibilities of negative. I have spent days upon days researching and studying, and what I found out was that it's not a good option for me. And that's why I'm so adamant that people go out and do their own research based on their bodies, based on their issues, and do it with your physicians. I'm telling you, YouTube's after me already, but that's okay. That's okay. I put on a little bit of makeup because I was so pale, but I do feel better, and I had rested earlier, and the shaking, the tremors have stopped. Like I'm dead still today. So I think that whatever occurred with the RSD Saturday that caused, I mean, I couldn't have even used my cane or my rolly cart to have gotten around. So I'm just very lucky my husband had that day off, because that was his first day off in like 21 days. But that's another reason. I know my body and I know what is going on. And that's, I've done so much research. And I want people to understand, I'm telling you the research I'm doing for me based on my health issues, so that you can see what I've had to go through based on my health issues, so that if I have anything that's similar, you can use it, you can adopt it, you can read it and go from there. I'm not trying to push how I'm handling this on anyone else. I'm just trying to show you that some of the people that are going through this are not what you think they are. They're very concerned, health-conscious people that are being placed in a very precarious situation because of specific health criteria that they have. And so that's why I am super adamant that this should be a personal decision, that you should not be coerced in any way, and that you should be rounding up all the research and material that you need to feel good about a decision you're going to make about this, because it is going to affect you for the rest of your life. And in some capacity, it's going to affect you for the rest of your life. So anyway, I've had one of those days where there's just been a lot of stuff hit the internet today, and I've been like, what the crap? I've been following Dr. McCullough for a long time, Peter McCullough. And the only reason I follow him is because from the very get-go, when a lot of people, a lot of doctors and a lot of facilities and a lot of specialists that I was supposed to see started turning people away that had the sniffles or had anything that looked like, the bug, I almost died from mastoiditis this spring. I had mastoiditis, which presents very much between the drainage, the coughing, it very much like a really bad cold or sinusitis. But what it's doing in the back is it's getting infected bones near your brain, which can almost immediately turn into meningitis and kill you. And I also had a fracture, an old fracture that opened up because of the intracranial pressure. So I was very sick this spring. And I could not get into any ENT's office. It took us about 3 months to find an ENT that would accept me through the doors, because they were so hyper vigilant to turn away anyone that had the sniffle. They would say, oh, well, we can't let you pass station 3 today, and you'd have to go like through 4 or 5 stations to get in. We can't let you pass station 3 today because we feel that you may have been exposed. You need to reschedule and come back another day, or go to the hospital or go to the ER if something immediate occurs and you're concerned. I had been concerned for months. I had been on antibiotics for months. I could not see a specialist, and I was so concerned about this, and I started watching the news, and I realized that there was this one little man taking on basically everybody, and it was Peter McCullough. And he was saying, hey, treat these people. Treat them as outpatients before it becomes an inpatient battle, because the way this virus acts, by the time they're inpatient and they're showing enough signs to get admitted to the hospital, it's going to be too late. We've got to learn to treat these people as inpatients. And if you're too scared to treat them as inpatients, shame on you, and send them to somebody who will. And he is a board certified internist and cardiologist. So the man is smart. And he's like one of the most published doctors in science. So I'm going to listen to this man. He's smart. So he started championing that we do treatment. We create a treatment protocol for outpatient, which was largely left untouched. Because when people started issuing these emergency orders and these medication rules and mandates and stuff, all the doctors just kind of said, screw it, we're not going to treat them until they get in the hospital, because we have direct rules when they get into the hospital. So it left a lot of people at home to suffer for a week or two, to get super sick, to get near death's door before they could actually get admitted and receive any treatment. So the protocol for a long time with this was, stay home and try to beat it. If it gets to the point where you really don't think you can, go to the ER and we'll admit you. But they can't admit you unless you're presenting certain things. That put people between 8 and 14 days of suffering before they were admitted. And they were terribly ill at that time, and sadly many did not make it. Also, there was limited medication that was approved for hospitalization treatment. So they couldn't throw the whole bag of everything, because there seemed to be some kind of political war going on with medications. Many people were not allowed certain life-saving medications because the protocol for the hospital was written in stone. And so we saw a lot more risk. Peter McCullough has stated that many people in the hospitals died that did not need to die, because they were not treated with kind of like a multi-tier approach. They were treated with the 2 or 3 things that the hospital was approved for, and no doctor was brave enough to ask questions, because doctors that were asking questions or asking to use other medications were basically being threatened for their license. So we had a lot of peer pressure going on in the physician world when we were starting to see people get hospitalized and pass away rather quickly, and there was no outpatient protocol, and the inpatient protocol sucked. So this was not a great situation to be in. And Peter McCullough was the first doctor that championed up and said, hey, treat these people as outpatient. Learn how to treat them symptomatically so that they don't end up in the hospital, because the hospital is turning into basically where we go to die. Legit. Just where if you get admitted, your likelihood is you're going to pass away. So he was the one that said, we need to focus, and we need to make sure that the CDC and the census data and all this stuff is correct, because right now the CDC and the census data estimate that about 45 million people have had COVID, but if you factor in the underreporting and the missed people at the beginning of the surge of COVID, Dr. McCullough thinks it's probably really around 120 million. So we're getting there as far as herd immunity and people developing antibodies, and the people being given the monoclonal, whatever, I can't say it, but my nose is draining bad tonight. We have got a lot of people that have antibodies to this floating around. So we're getting almost to a herd immunity level, but they keep freaking out. And he's like, hey, the focus needs to be on antibody testing, the false positives from the PCR, cycling them down and up to control the positives, to create fear. We can't do that anymore. People are smart enough to understand that with flu and all these other respiratory viruses blip off the radar, it's because something else is being applied, and they know they can feel the signs, they can read the signs, they know something was misrepresented last year, and we need to make sure that rather than using these false positives that sometimes were as high as 97% inaccurate. Why is that even allowed in a scientific community these days? 97% inaccurate. Oh my God. What? Just guess. Flip a penny, you've got a better outcome. How you doing? But he was like, we need to focus on antibody testing, because there are 6 or 7 very key ways to where you get a definite answer and you know what's going on. So Dr. McCullough is, for me, he's a hero already. He's just a Ply Blanket hero. But he was wanting high quality testing rather than just quantity of testing. And so he did this thing with Joe Rogan, and he put a lot of information out there. There's a lot of information that I already knew, and then there were certain surprises that went in there. And I think everybody, if you've not seen the Joe Rogan interview with Dr. McCullough, it should be one thing that you do watch. It's about 2 hours long, but it is nothing but absolute information, jam-packed. And a lot of it is quite disconcerting, because a lot of it, even Dr. McCullough has to sit there and say, it was due to inept doctors. It was due to an ineptitude in the foundation of people treating these people, and it was due to some kind of bias. And he's like, I'm not sure how many there were or what they fixated on. He said, but I'm sure that everybody watching this probably has several ideas, and they're probably all correct. And he is trying to correct a lot of the issues that was done out of arrogance and out of ego by everybody on the startup of this COVID crap. So, today when I saw the White House issue the statement, I started looking into that statement a little bit, because it was then boosted by it was the Chief of Staff. It was the White House Chief of Staff, Ronald, is it Klain? And he basically retweeted it and said, the truth is the truth. Well, no, that was not the truth. That was President Biden's prediction of what he thinks will happen through the winter with people that are unvaccinated and vaccinated. It held no statistical data, no research data, no physician stamp of approval. It was just his idea of what he felt may happen this winter between the two parties. And I hate that he has created a dichotomy within our nation, because we are all just citizens. We're all just Americans. We're all just people trying to make the best decision in application to our lives. So it frustrated me from the get-go that he was playing a psychological game with you already from the get-go. Like, really, dude? You're the leader of the free world. These are things you should not do. Sadly, a lot of people enjoy that, and they play that game right along with him. I do not. But then I saw the name in Viva Fry's video today, the Apura Mandavia or something, or Mandavili, or however you say it. This person had posted on 5/26/21, someday we will stop talking about the lab leak theory and maybe even admit its racist roots. But also, but alas, that day is not here. That was on May 26th of this year. Now we've got the president stating, if you're unvaccinated, you're going to have a long dark winter of illness and dying, horrible deaths, and doomsday, you know. And I've told you for many, many months now, if people go for your emotions first, it's probably because they lack the factual evidence to pull you to their side. So they're going to do it with fear or another emotion, because emotions are legit the best way to scare people into doing what you want them to do. So when people want you to go to an emotional place, always question their motive. So I thought, okay, so this Mandavili person is a New York Times reporter, and they have actually received an award, and it was the Victor Cohn Prize. And the Victor Cohn Prize gives the award to the writer that has made a profound and lasting contribution to public awareness, understanding of critical advances in medical services and their impact on human health and well-being. And I thought, okay, so if this is a New York Times reporter saying this such doom and gloom, excuse me. We've got a president saying doom and gloom. Let's dig into this a little bit more. So I went to this person's Twitter, and I found that a lot of what this writer was sharing was very similar to the gloom and negativity and the very misleading things, such as titles that said, and this was in December, there was she shared a story that said, kind of stunning, a local health department in rural southern Missouri, pay attention to the words, is halting hang on, I'm going to read my own writing. Is halting its response efforts after the State Attorney General Eric Schmidt wrote agencies that were demanding they drop the mitigation measures. So they wrote this thing saying, this man in southern rural Missouri County is asking for his school area, his school board, to drop mitigation measures. And that's all they wrote. So how would you imply that if you were reading that? Oh my God, this dude that has control over all these kids going to school is asking them to stop the COVID-19 measures and responses, and oh my gosh, he's putting everyone at risk. Oh my gosh, oh my, but that was not actually what it was. So I started looking into this story. So now that you kind of know with a title like that how most people would read into it, I started taking the story apart. Well, it actually meant that he had asked for the health department to stop issuing these measures and these mandates and these, because it had always been done at a local level by elected officials that the parents trusted. And under the state of emergency, it got switched to a state or federal, depending on which had the ability to do so the easiest. And all he wanted was it to come back down to local, because the parents in his area were very concerned because they had issues with the mandates, with the quarantine aspect of things, with the rules that their children were being put under and the mask mandates their kids were being put under. And when these parents went to the school to address them, they would say, you have to write someone at a state or federal level. You have to take it up at a state or federal level. So these parents felt like they had no outlet. So they went back to their local guy and said, hey, why can we not handle this? When it used to be we could go see this one dude, and he's like, that person is no longer over it because of the state of emergency. It got moved, and they're like, well, we want it moved back. So all these parents and all these people were like, we want it moved back to local. We do not trust the higher ranking people. We are not getting our needs met. We're not getting any responses. We feel that our kids are just free floating out there and we have no say-so over it. So we want this stopped, and we want it brought back down to local levels. So he got together, and a lot of the parents said, like, what do we need to do to change this? And he said, well, you're going to have to sue to get it changed. So guess what? The parents wanted to sue. And guess what? It immediately got changed back to local level, because the judge that saw it said there's no need for it to be a state or federal. There's no longer a state of emergency. We know how to do this, and instead of listening to someone from the state or fed level, you should be able to go and ask your doctor. You should be, if your child has been exposed or is positive, you know you have to go home quarantine. From there, you should be able to talk to your doctor rather than have to go and get federal directives. And it just made more sense. But somebody reading that title would not have guessed any of that. Well, then I looked into it, and guess what? The Attorney General that stood up for the parents in the area, and this was all put in the article too, is Republican, and he's running for the Senate. Now, would that have been in any other article about a Democrat? Probably not, because that's just not something, you know, that most normal journalists that do not have a bias, they just don't put that in there. It should just be the facts about the story that they're covering, not that man's profile. So on December 8th, everything changed back. And he issued out letters saying, hey guys, things are going to be changing back on December 8th. I want you all to be ready to immediately enact the correct rules and contact the correct people. For me, I would say, well, that's nice of him to do that. That is something that would be considered, you know, a pleasantry of, hey, remember this has to happen this day, and don't get it wrong, okay? And we don't want anybody in trouble. Thank you, sir. That's how I would have responded to that. Oh, they started saying that he is forcing the change. No, the judge forced the change. He slapped the gavel on it, and it's going to change. The guy is just reminding you all to stay on the right page and stay legal. So what he actually did was basically listen to the local parents, listen to their fears and their concerns, understand that their needs were not being met, understand that they were not having anyone to access the issues in the schools where their children were, and get any kind of resolution. And he stepped in and stood up for these parents and told them how to proceed. And he got treated like this. Where are the fact checkers that now say like missing context or something? They're nowhere to be found, are they? Absolutely nowhere to be found. If we're going to do it for one side, let's do it for all. So then I started thinking, oh my gosh, this ties in almost at the exact same time this was occurring. Was when Merrick Garland, the Attorney General, was turning his Homeland Defense terrorism team into a babysitting club and telling them if there are any issues at school board meetings, go in and handle it. I think there was one arrest for like somebody got really heated and threatened somebody, but potentially a nothing burger. But they pressed these parents to not go to these school boards meetings and to not say that they were unhappy and to not voice their concerns. And now I'm seeing, oh, there were a lot of schools that were answering only to state and federal level, and were no longer under local control. And when this went big time and people figured out what was going on, a lot of those schools got put back to local control instead of state and federal. Should they have stayed state and federal? Should they have been there anyway? Should they remain there? Should they ever have been turned? I would think that the most local level possible to talk to about your children's education and well-being would be the best application process. So it's like, why was the control needed to be moved, and why was it, when it was moved back, why was it basically stolen or talked about as a negative or talked about as Republicans seeking Senate seat were causing uproars? So that just kind of got me thinking that all of this started happening at a very weird time. And of course, then we started the booster shots for kids and stuff to come in, and schools started pushing the booster shots. Well, now a lot of schools that had been at federal level or state level supervision were now back down to local level. And guess what? A lot of the parents said, we don't want this at all. Don't offer it. But they had created a loophole where if the child was 12 or above, they could take it without parental consent. And had that school been under federal, state, or federal control, parents would have had absolutely no outlet. Because many of them went back to local, a lot of parents figured out what was going on and stopped the process and said, no, this is my child's health. I will handle it with my physician. Locally, you don't do this. So I started seeing this connection, and I thought, oh my gosh, we're being moved into a federally controlled nation over a cold that can be severe and lethal at times, but primarily a cold, kind of like the flu. And that terrified me. And so it made me start thinking, what else is being changed? What else is going out there? Has anybody else noticed any of this stuff going on? I mean, have you all started putting these things together? And because all of a sudden, parents became troublemakers that were being monitored like terrorists. Like parents, just Jane Doe's and John Smith's, have got background, like have got files in the Department of Homeland Security and the Terrorist Department because they wanted local level control over their kids' education. This is crazy. For me, it's just absolutely, this is something that happens in, China, where people are not given, the ability to say anything. So why are local mandates such a negative thing for this administration? Why is local control such a negative thing? And why is the parental component such a negative thing now? When parents And nuclear families have been the backbone of this nation, and they've depended on two parents working, split raising the kids. Why are parents now the enemy? And where is all of the fact checker crap going on for these wild stories that are giving us people's profiles and missing context, but like heinously absurd titles? This would not have flown had it been from the other side, so that it kind of frustrated me. But one of my biggest issues when it comes to all this going on, especially with Peter McCullough, and how we're treating this pandemic, which is not a pandemic by numbers status, is not a pandemic, but anyway, respectable medical journals like The Lancet got caught publishing false articles last year, and rather than apologize and say we won't do it again, they deleted it, and now they're acting like they didn't do it at all. That doesn't sound like a transparent attempt to meet in the middle. Does it? Does it to you? It certainly doesn't to me. And basically what The Lancet posted, I mean, it was used to belittle people as conspiracy theorists. And it was saying that, if you believe that this spread from a lab, then basically there's no possible way, and you're a racist. But now we know that there's actually no possible way that this was nature born, and that it did come from a lab. We don't know if accidental or not, but The Lancet deleted that article and will not address it. But did you know that the term conspiracy theorist was created by our own government? It was created by our own government back during the Cold War. So the people that started talking about things that the government couldn't control the conversations about, it was a term that they spread so that they could discredit these people, belittle these people, and basically control the flow of information and control who you listen to and who most people listen to. And the more that I see, now that I'm putting things together, I'm sitting there going, holy crap, why didn't I notice this before? Seriously, Annette, seriously, because back in the 90s, the 80s and 90s, when all the AIDS pandemic stuff, of course, I'm a huge Freddie Mercury fan. I've read all the information and even been lucky enough to ask someone that worked very close with him a lot about his medical treatment and the concerns he had. And, he had money. He could afford any of the medicines, but a lot were not allowed to be administered. So he would actually have to go to other countries where they were allowed to be administered to buy these life-saving medications. And it turns out that a lot of them were simply not administered in the United States. And the protocol is almost identical to what happens with COVID and all the medications that could be potentially used to treat it. And oddly enough, the guy that did this, that created the plan back then, that killed hundreds of thousands of people that didn't need to die, was the same man that's doing it this time, Anthony Fauci. So it's kind of like I've seen this card trick before, and I don't enjoy it. So can we not do it anymore? Can we pick another route? This one's not working for me. So it seems like he's just a one-trick pony. And this is what he does for like shits and giggles or something. I don't know. But this is honest. If you just go and research his behavior in the 80s and the way he handled the medication and the information and the research, and then you apply it to what's going on now, almost identical. And I mean like 99.9% identical. And once again, tried to pull everything to state and federal level so that he had control of everything and there were no questions. And, oh yeah, it's like Keebler called, they want their elf back. That man is not a physician. He is not a doctor. He is not a man of science. And he is not anybody I want controlling anything that I do with my body. My other, and that's my notes. I don't talk well when I'm reading notes. I would rather be off the fly, but I had some stuff that I needed to remember specific things for. So now we're going to go with the fly. My other issue is that there was a Tennessee nurse, and I forget her name. There was a Tennessee nurse that they used as a mouthpiece. She got her shot on TV, and then she went up to make a speech, and she passed out. They were blowing her name up and blowing her up, and she was going to get her shot on TV and make this big speech, and she passed out mid-speech. Well, guess what? She never regained consciousness, and she died. And now you're not allowed to say the woman's name. And I found it, but you have a hard time finding it these days, too. They're not talking about the 48-hour gap that is killing a lot of people. And they're not talking about it because if people were to understand the fear, that because they, the reason why they don't want them to talk about it, and the people start putting two and two together. The issue with COVID and the vaccine, the things that are harming people, they're not the vaccine or the virus themselves. It's the spike protein. Spike protein is in the virus and the vaccine, because to fight the virus, the vaccine has to basically simulate, emulate, copy the virus, so it has a spike protein in it too. Well, the spike protein levels for the virus are very, very high anyway. But most people's bodies can handle it. The ones that can't end up with some kind of thrombo, stroke, heart attack, something like that, blood clot, something like that. That's why they're saying now, after you've had COVID naturally, you probably should not get the vaccine, because the spike protein, it takes your body 12 to 15 months to shed and recalibrate the spike protein levels. And all the spike protein is basically a little piece of protein that goes to the virus and goes, you can't get out. But in the process of doing that, it grabs and grabs and grabs the virus and gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And so your body normally has enough of these spike proteins to grab the virus, but still easily maneuver in, through, and out your body. But now that we're doubling, tripling, and quadrupling the number of spike proteins in your body, guess what? The blood flow is being compromised. That's why we're seeing clots and strokes and other things like that. And a lot of people don't understand that, they feel too sheepish to ask the question to get it explained to them. Well, it takes your body 12 to 15 months to cycle out the excess spike proteins. Well, guess what? Now they want you to have so if you've had it naturally, it's very scary for you to get the vaccine, because the vaccine could spike your spike levels again and kill you. But here's the funny thing. Now that we know that, isn't it odd that they want you to have a booster shot every 6 months if you've had the vaccine? They want you to have a booster shot every 6 months. It takes at least 12 for your body to recalibrate your spike protein levels. So would that not leave you leading a life at an elevated spike protein level, which then could be augmented by any other illness, virus, sick time? I mean, it very much exacerbates a very tedious balance anyway in your body. Yeah, it takes 12 to 15 months. Like 12 is like the normal conservative average, and 15 is just like, and that's when they've done the research. No, that's at least the longest that it can last. So they want you to have a booster shot every 6 months, and then knowing that it takes your body 12 to 15 months to recalibrate, knowing that any sickness in between where that may create a spike protein issue may also further augment that. And if your spike protein levels are super high and you're having issues with blood clots and you're having issues with circulation and blood flow, then you're super susceptible to a ton of other issues. So would it not look like you're just destabilizing the medical capacity of an entire nation? Because I'm going to tell you something that's really big right now. A lot of people have long-lasting COVID where the symptoms last a long time. And those are normally cases that were very hard, very difficult, and ended up affecting an organ or harming an organ. But, and this is per Dr. Peter McCullough and all the data and research that's come in, because the PCR testing was so horrible the first time, and because there were so many false positives, and because people really didn't know what was going on, and they didn't do antibody testing, now that they've started doing that and they're monitoring people, they're saying that they cannot find a secondary infection. It has not been identified. It has not been seen. A lot of people may get sick and think they've got it again, but it's normally a cold or a sinus issue or allergies that seems more prominent because your body is still knocked from the COVID. But there is no secondary infection that has been found by science research yet. Not at all. And it would stand to reason that probably it's a one and done, because SARS-CoV-1 was found that once you've had it, you're immune for life. It is a one and done. So and that's how most of the coronaviruses are. So if that stands to reason, doesn't it make sense? Sorry, I had an itch. Doesn't it make sense that this one would be very similar and have the same one and done effect? Which that means if we've got 120 million people that have had it, plus everybody getting the antibodies and getting treatments, plus everybody that has had it and that's not told anybody, not participated, had no idea, we're riding the line close to herd immunity, and enough to where we should start seeing COVID dissipate. It's definitely starting to reduce in power as it mutates, which in nature they always reduce in power when they mutate. There's not a virus in nature ever logged to have increased that was nature made. They all decrease in power. And so they're starting to find these things out and be very critical of past research and starting to put this together, but it's getting very hard to share the information because in India and over in that area, a lot of people are so poor they can't even afford to go to the doctor, so they started implementing a really funny thing. Eastern medicine is always way ahead, if you ask me. So they said, hey, the viral load stays in the nose for 3 to 4 days before it spreads to the rest of the body. So you've got a 3 to 4 day gap where you could really do something. The virus is very, it's a sitting duck right here. And so these Eastern countries over toward India, because they're so highly populated and, they're just on top of each other, they decided, because the neti pots and sinus flushing is a prominent thing over there, they decided to implement various different kinds of flushing with certain types of peroxide and certain types of iodine, and I'm not a doctor, this is not medical, this is just research that I found. Did you know that in those areas where they started doing the flushing, COVID is almost non-existent? Saline flushes do the same thing. Yes, I do a lot of saline flushing because of my mastoiditis. I had the creepy crud last week, but it was most definitely sinus chest congestion from the weather and everything going around, because my husband had it too, and it was just where Tennessee has done this. Other than that, I've not had anything that could even be said was COVID, although everybody was so scared of my mastoiditis, they were freaking out, but I knew exactly, that was mastoiditis, not COVID. Is that a reason I've not seen anything yet? No, knock on wood, it could happen tomorrow. Is that a possibility? Because I have to flush a couple times a day. And I gargle with salt water, and I do a lot of steam in my home. Makes you wonder, doesn't it? Makes you wonder. But these places that have instituted these practices almost have eradicated COVID. It's like not even a thought in most people's days. It's just rare. So why are we not doing that here? And why, when I try to pull those articles that show that, it says I'm not allowed to access that site, so I put on my VPN and then I can't. Why is the U.S. stopping this information, these scientific journals, these peer-reviewed articles from coming over here and letting us figure out what information we want to know and what we don't? Why are these practices out there that are so simple, that are so easy, a neti pot, a saline flush, that could potentially work, have a 50 to 60% return on your investment of whatever you put in there, whatever your doctor tells you to put in there? Why are these practices not being talked about, instituted, and just thrown everywhere, instead of the fear and the you're not vaccinated, horrible death? Oh yeah, gargles are great. My granny and great granny. If anything was wrong with you, went and gargled with salt water. That was it. After 2 years and after we've got these vaccines going, everywhere that has got a highly vaccinated population is still seeing high numbers of the virus. But you go into these places where people can't afford to get vaccinated, they don't trust the vaccine, and they go to old school practices like flushing their noses out, and it doesn't exist. Where it did exist, and it was starting to take hold, and they went to these old school simplistic practices, and boom, it's gone. But we can't talk about that in the U.S. We can't access those journals online. You have to pay to have a VPN so that they can't tell where you're logging in from, so that they give you the information, which I think is ludicrous and almost downright criminal in a time of a medical issue like this, where you should be able to access any information you want. And then you go on the White House page as someone who's medically not able to have that vaccine, but is someone who has researched profoundly all sides of this topic. I go on, and I just want to see us meet money. You're right. I just want to see us meet in the middle and start to have conversations about this and start to openly discuss this. And I see my president the man who they state was elected. I see him up there basically saying, well, part of the population is doing what I told them. They're A+ students. You're fine. You're fine. But you unvaccinated people, you better get. It's like he's almost threatening us with it. Like he's almost wishing it. And to state those things, it means he's thought about it. And you can tell he's frustrated that we've not gone and gotten this. So it's my concern is he invested in creating that historical line now where there is a lot of deaths? Should this something we should be concerned about? It felt almost like a threat to me. Like if somebody called me on the phone and said something like that, I'd be like, deputies, we need to find this person and issue a no contact order and phone harassment. I'd be like, I'm concerned. That guy's a little crazy. So I'm just like, wake up, people. Start crossing the lines. Because even now, when the parents and the school boards and all that, they were more concerned about stating that the person that was trying to support the parents and do what the parents that put them into power, that put them into office, what their constituents were telling them to do, because they did their job and they did it by the constituents that put them in, how they were supposed to do it. It was more important for that publisher and that author to put in that article that was a Republican also seeking a Senate seat in the next race, rather than to just give the facts. And I'm sitting here going, people, we need to pay attention to this. We need to pay attention as to why everything's been sent to a federal level for approval or a federal level for last say, why our local institutions have lost all power, why our parents are being monitored by terrorist supervision groups of the government, and why anyone that's not joined into a medical research program, and don't anybody tell me this is not medical research, no, it's not approved, this is still a human testing, you're still part of medical research, and there are still people getting saline shots that don't know it. Tell me, would that be legit? If it were straight up vaccinations people wanted, would it be legit for a portion of them to go in and still get saline? No, that would be like murderous, right? Sure. But it is still research. And you can't be told to do it by a doctor. You can't be coerced or talked into it by a doctor. All of that's illegal. It could cause doctors to lose their license. But we've got our leader of this world up there behind a podium saying he's going to make it to where you can't work unless you have it. I don't want to be part of medical research. I thought the last time I checked that was my right to say no. The Nuremberg trials made sure it was my right to say no. But because people will read these big titles that flash this big emotional constipation feeling, they get stuck on that rather than researching what is actually being said in that article and seeing these little tracebacks to where, there might be something else going on there, and I might need to pay a little bit more attention. I might need to spend more than 5 minutes a day on the news and maybe 15 or 20. We're guinea pigs. We are I call them Jenny hogs, but we are. That's absolutely. When someone can stand up there and so callously and nonchalantly say that, he wants to bring unity to the nation, but the first thing he does is screw us all over, and that he wants to help us get well and to get past this pandemic. But then, oh, on top of being sick, I'm going to cause, at least 50% of you to lose your job. Because even though I didn't trust the jibby jab, 2 years ago, and I went on television and said I did not, now that I'm the one wearing the golden fleece slippers, I expect everyone to trust it, and you must do it because I said you must. If not, you're not going to be able to work, and then I'm going to talk about you in a secondary phrasing and tell you that you're going to die a horrible death this winter, while I pat my special citizens that follow my every whim on the head. And I just sit here and go, surely other people see this. Surely other people see this. Because back, several years ago, I don't really ascribe to a party. Back several years ago, I was one of the ones that was going, chill out, stop belittling people for having different choices in their life, stop creating issues. And so I've always tried to find like the medium, the happy medium, where everybody can have their own life choices and stay safe and be respected. Where did the happy medium go? It's gone. So me, somebody that used to always fly in that little happy medium where I tried to respect and stand up for everyone, I can't do that anymore. I'm being forced to pick a side. When all I want is education. I want to be able to educate myself, to get this data, to absorb it how I want to, and to have the time to make a decision that's right for me. And now I'm a bad person. And I understand psychologically why everyone that has gotten this jibby jab is upset, because they've gotten it and they've been made to feel like they've done something, like they've saved someone. You've not. You've placed experimental drugs in your body, and it may reduce the symptomology, but it's not stopped the transmission. It's not stopped you from packing. It's stopped you from maybe noticing. It's not stopped the spread. It's not stopped the transmissibility or the lethality in the most part. It's done very little. But because you feel like you did something and that you put your life on the line to do something, you feel like everyone else should too. By God, I did it. You should do it too. When most people on the other side are going, well, it was your choice. And my choice is not to join and do that. I don't want to do that. But the people that don't want to do it, they're like, you wanted to do it, that's fine. You do what you want to do. I don't want to do that. And then other people are like, you will do what I say you will do. See, now the big man that lives in the big white house is telling you you're going to die. And I'm just sitting here going, in what realm of the United States did we ever think it would be appropriate for our elected officials to stand behind that podium and basically create a dichotomy within our citizenry and talk about half them as prized pupils and the other half as sheep to the slaughter because of their ineptitude? It's frustrating. It's frustrating. And I just think with all the articles that are being pulled, deleted, and then they didn't exist, we obviously know that a lot of the research and stuff is being misrepresented, and we're not being given the full truth, and we're very much being fed a controlled dialogue, and it is changed as their need to control us changes. And I'm just kind of over it. I'm just really over it. And if Joe Biden thinks that makes me a horrible person, I don't control your opinion of me. That's in your brain and it's yours. But I would hope that as the president of this goddamn nation, you would sit there and say what has made us a great place is that we allow people to live their lives, to make their decisions, and to overwhelmingly be an individualistic society. We don't have a lot of, we didn't have a lot of tribalism. We didn't have huge issues with ideology. And that was the key component, that we were all individuals. So we didn't have to worry and create gangs to protect ourselves, because we knew that the protection and the key to life laid within the individual. Well, now we're having to gang up and protect ourselves. And this is a sucky place to be when you feel that you have to surround yourself with other people and join into very, possibly aggressive groups of people to feel as if you have a say-so, or that your voice can be heard, or that you have a chance at survival. It's just like, where do we live? And why are people not understanding that this is wrong? And why are our elected officials almost pushing people into it? Like, they keep talking about, if you're this color, you're a supremacist. That you have privilege and power. Oh, I wish somebody would have told me about all my privilege and power when I was buying a 1/4 acre property, trying just praying to the good Lord above that it would perk so I could put a tiny little square peg home on it. But I'm not allowed to speak for myself, because the people that can speak for me, these big people and these tribalistic ideological groups, that control the narrative. And therefore I'm bad. I'm an inherent evil upon the world, and I made a pact with the devil for my privilege. That is in a children's book that is going around public school systems. And I grew up saying, never say anything bad about anyone else. You don't know that person. You can't climb inside and feel and know all that they feel and know. So shut your mouth and never say a bad thing about that person. Wait and get to know them, and then if they're not somebody you can spend time with, walk away. But don't make an inherent judgment based on information that is not yours, you didn't acquire, that you didn't absolutely sort through and go through with a fine-tooth comb. But today, you hop on Twitter and you're told how to live and how to think. And it's just like, what's going on? Good Lord have mercy. He's going to have a whole lot for the way this world's going. But if you go on Twitter, which is only about 17 to 21% of the population actively brain vomiting, you see such aggressive, tribalistic groupings. It's so sad. And so people think that's how they're supposed to live. That's only a small portion of the population, people. You don't live in this little box. You live in real interactions with real people. And I can't stress that enough. Well, that's it. Tina says, about this Epstein trial. We have the capacity and the capability right now for this trial to have showed us everything, to have gone through. I wanted them to go through the discovery pages with a fine-tooth comb and tell the public everything. Do you know what they did? Like day 6 of the trial, when the most weighted upon person was going to testify, victim was going to testify, because that held the most potential that we could really see people punished that needed to be punished. They started screaming that one of the, which side was it? It wasn't, I don't think it was the defense. Anyway, some lawyer had possibly been exposed, and they needed to clear the courtroom, and all the adjacent courtrooms where people had been monitoring the trial on the TVs, and shut it down, quarantine. But what it allowed was for that victim to be ushered into the courtroom and identified, because they had been going by like Jane Doe and all this stuff. They did it. They didn't say it early that morning. They allowed for the victim to go into the courtroom, to have eyes laid on them. And then before they could put that victim on the stand, they blew this big, COVID frenzy, and we all got a quarantine. But what came out of that was, now that victim was identified before the testimony was given, which I'm sure changed something. I'm sure there was contact somehow, and I'm sure it changed something. I'm not stupid. I've been in too many courtroom trials. But they also did not go through the discovery. They did not read stuff so that it would be on the record, so that it would be public knowledge, so that it would be something that the American citizens could follow and understand. And if you look at all of the businesses that were on the co-defendant list that have had access or worked with Epstein in some way, as to which put them in a category where they should be monitored and possibly part of the trial, I mean, it's astounding, a lot of the businesses that were on there. Now we will never because they just flushed that like on day one. Now we'll never get a lot of questions answered. We'll never get a lot of data that we need to fully understand what was going on, and what roles were being played and who was partially responsible, because we know who was, in the majority responsible. But there's so much else going on, and now because of the way they handled the trial, we will never get that information. We will never have access to that, and it wasn't put on the record. It was not read and put on the freaking record. So if they go and they redact all of that crap, we're not going to have 5% of the information that we would have had the trial been handled appropriately. And tell me that any victim that has gone through that, and that had to go through this trial, tell me they feel as if they've been respected, and that what happened to them is going to be put back together by their ability to take action against the parties via this trial. This trial has done nothing. And it doesn't, as soon as they said that Comey's daughter was lead prosecutor, I thought, well, because Comey is a puppet and wakes up every morning, I'm pretty sure, lines his hiney with Vaseline and bends over. Because somebody's playing him like a puppet. So to think that his daughter is not under the same level of puppeteering is stupid. Because she is where she is because of that name. So what does she have to do to maintain that name? Yeah, it was a strategy move. It irritated the crap out of me, because we all could call it, we could all call it like it was. Yeah, it's a sham. The elites are getting away with everything. But in the meantime, everybody I run across in the street wants to scream at me for being a white devil, and for thinking it's okay for people to run through the streets with machine guns. And I'm sitting there going, where are you getting your information? And I will try to talk to these people, and they're like, you're a liar, you're lying to me. And I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm telling you straight up facts. Well, how do you know straight up facts? I watched the entire trial. The whole thing. Which at times was very boring. Did you watch it? Well, no. Well, then you can't really have a conversation with me if you don't. You need to go watch this. Oh, I'm not going to spend that much of my life doing that. But you're going to spend most of your life running around screaming at people with no background, no foundation, and no justification for your feelings about this. Just because you woke up today and this was how you wanted to go. So you woke up and said, today I'm going to scream at all the white people I know and call them racist. Because Kyle Rittenhouse got a not guilty verdict. None of that has any kind of causal relationship. And I can't express that deep enough. Like, I don't get up every day and think ill about any culture, race that's been in a bad light because of one person that, went out and did something that was a horrible misrepresentation of the, of everybody like them. I just don't go out and think like that. I think of people as individuals. You are responsible for you and what you do. And I dare say that in this day and age, your culture and your race bears very little upon your daily actions. Now, big momentous events in your life, and yeah, but your daily actions, probably very little is affected by that. So you're an individual. I take you as an individual. And it's a shame. Like, we had some people move here in this very small rural area, and they counted the gunshots and called the law and said there have been 40 gunshots. You need to come arrest somebody. 40? You counted? Why were you counting? Do you know if they all came from the same place or not? Because you live in a certain little place where it can echo. Oh, you didn't know that? Okay, you live in a little place where the mountain echoes a certain way, and you can't. Well, did you know that you also bought in one of the areas that has the most public hunting land? No, you didn't? Okay, well, did you also know that the 4 people that adjoin to your property have 3 of the largest farms and then a very large acreage homestead, and that their families and their friends come here and hunt because it's a very great place to hunt. No, you didn't know that? Well, did you know that people are bore sighting in their weapons right now for the second rut? So the lazy hunters, like most everybody in this area that missed the first rut, they are now getting out their rifles and bore sighting in the rifles. If they've been dropped, knocked, pegged, or stored improperly, they're going to check them. If 3-4 guys get together to bore sight in their rifles, and they have some of the shoddy equipment I had to hunt with as a poor person in rural Tennessee, it's going to take them several shots apiece, which sounds kind of like they may have been bore sighting in their weapons. Oh, you know what bore sighting is? Well, I know that you're excited for deer season to be over with, but after deer season, we cycle through, like, everything here that has fur there's a season. And we're all hunters or we're all fur trappers, so you're going to hear stuff year round. Okay. Well, you're mad because you went into your neighbor's fence line and saw a snare, and the snare had a man's name on it on a tag, and you want that man arrested. Why? Well, if you don't know, that man is a coyote trapper. He put his snare on a fence line where the coyote are sneaking through. The trap has a tag with a name on it because he's required by law to have a name on every trap he has out. And no, ma'am, it won't catch your dog. Number one, your dog doesn't need to be on somebody else's property. But number two, it has a safety for what most dogs' paw sizes are. So it's meant to only trap coyotes. And now my question to you, ma'am, is why are you trespassing on your neighbor's property? And they don't get it. They don't get it that they did something wrong and nobody else did. They twist and talk and keep just creating drama, thinking that if they are the loudest or the most notorious and they just keep being a drama queen, it will eventually sway their way. And we've got to stop this because this is happening nationwide. We've got to get back to a rule and a nation ruled by law, where individuals are held accountable, and we don't run amok. And isn't it funny now that nobody wanted to, everybody wanted to defund the police, and everybody wanted to let everybody get away with everything until the rich stores were getting looted. Like, it's okay to cause your neighborhood issues, to burglarize each other, to go through shooting up your neighborhoods and your small towns. But when the rich white men that own the luxury stores start seeing pennies go out of their bank accounts, now we take action. Yeah. Tell me where your heart is, Mr. Biden. Oh, the Alec Baldwin case, don't even get me started on it. That man's an actor. He's a master manipulator, and he's just trouble. He is just trouble. He is somebody that I believe has a lot of issues, but rage, the rage disorder is probably the biggest on his list. But I'm seeing a lot of this, like these people that move here, they think because they think it's wrong, it must be wrong. I've never once woken up in my life and thought, because I had that thought, it must be ingenious. Let me just go tell everybody. No, I have thoughts, and then I test them, I research them, I challenge them. And if I'm wrong, I go, well, that was a laughable moment. I was wrong. And I correct it and I go on. I don't lead myself in this fantasy world where everything is about me. I have to live in a world with other people. Therefore, I have to know how to get along, and I have to understand how to cohabitate. And that means following the rules that we all abide by. I'm feeling better. Saturday was a really rough day, but I'm doing better. It was just one of those weird flares. It's just what it was. And I've done a lot. I've done a lot of additional work and stuff because of the holidays, so I'm just taking it easier. Like today, I literally rested all day. So my husband was just like, just chill, just rest. So that's why I wanted to come on tonight and talk about these concerns, because I feel better when I talk about them. But the more I see this stupid vaccine get pushed, the more I am concerned that they will somehow find a way to finagle it as a mandate, and then out of stupidity and the inability to allow the American people to fight back and have lawsuits and to say, no, this is not going to happen, they're just going to force vaccinate everybody. I'm here to tell you right now, with my health issues, and the already bad issues I had with spike proteins and sicknesses and inflammation and how my body responds because of my RSD. Me and all my group of specialists are like, it's a 95% possibility, likelihood, that if I'm given that because of the spike protein issue, and the way I have reacted to other vaccines, with inflammation and my body doing strange things, it's a 95% possibility that I will be one of the people to die within 48 hours. So I have to look at anyone coming at me with a needle as a threat. And so I have to legit fill my head with every factual, just shred of evidence so that I can communicate my fear, my concern, so that this does not happen to me, and in hopes I will help other people. Because there are some people that are medically incapable, and I am one of them. And I am not a bigoted anti-vaxxer that is so stupid. I am someone that has a medical issue, whose body does not work correctly, who is adamantly aware of it, who has a disorder with so little research and absolutely no funding, that I live in this little what the crap area on the doctor's map, and they just, like, there's, like, with this fracture in my head, they're scared to try to do any kind of surgery because my body will react with over amplification of swelling, and the swelling could kill me. A surgery, a 10-minute surgery that anyone else could battle and do on an outpatient basis, could potentially kill me. So I live a very different life than most people. My body does not respond to things, correctly. It's wigged out. And on certain days, I have like a Parkinsonian tremor or a full out. Like this last time, the way I noticed something was going on was I was trying to eat and had my iPad in a stand. And I had just been sitting there. I hadn't been eating. I had been reading something on my iPad. And I went to push a button and I missed, which is not unheard of. So I went to push the button again and I missed again. And I thought, dang it, work. and I went to push it again. And when I went to push it again, I missed. And I came back and did like that. Well, then my hand got stuck in doing this. And I was trying to stop it. And the more I tried to stop it, the worse it was getting. Hi, Denise. And the next thing I know, I'm holding on to stuff to try to stop my body from lurching. And I'm like, oh crap, here we go. This is a new one. And it got to the point where I was getting like pulled in different directions, and I was afraid I was going to hit the ground. So I called my husband, who got me situated, and I said, I don't know if my sugar's low, if I haven't ate enough, if something's going on. I said, help me get a few bites of food in my mouth, because I couldn't. And I said, help me get a swig of something that's got some sugar in it in case it's my sugar. That didn't help. And literally, like, the ER is an hour plus away. 9 times out of 10, if my heart's okay and my blood pressure's okay, which it was, then they're just like, this is part of it. And I'm like, I know. So I looked at him and I was like, I think it's just my tremors, and they're just super out of the norm, because I was like lurching like this. I said, just let me lay down, because sometimes with my disorder, if you like go to sleep and let your brain like shut off and turn, it's like turning your computer off and back on, then sometimes my body will quieten down and it won't be as bad. And so I went to sleep, and I'm not lying, I slept for over 7 hours. So whatever short-circuited wore me out. And I woke up, and yesterday I was sore from all the muscle lurching, because I was fighting it, and so it makes my muscles contract. And I was just super, and I'm still really sore today too, but yeah, reboot, that's what it is. And it took me a few days to get over it. And unfortunately, it seems like it's, my bowels were also not functioning correctly, so I've had to start all my medicine for my bowels again. And it's just like, oh, it's like I was doing, I was getting over being sick, and I was doing so well, but the doctor's like, well, listen, you were sick, you had the croupy crud, and it was very hard on you, it taxed your body. So for the next few weeks, you're going to have to chill, because anything you do is going to just overly, you know, tax your body. And so you just gonna have to chill out. And so I'm just kind of chilling out. I really want to like mop my floors, but I'm just gonna chill out. I'm not sure I could mop today, to be quite honest. But it made my vertigo amp back up too. But the weather also affects me. But this is, you know, there's nobody knows what I should expect. My RSD doesn't follow a lot of the pathways that other people's RSD follows. And so I have to take it day by day and report everything. And that's why I kind of keep a record, also keep a journal for my doctor so that they know everything that I'm feeling and what I'm going through, and they can see patterns. And there are no spas here. There's nothing here. But even if I go, like I had to go for a deep tissue massage one time because I had to catch my back, and that deep tissue massage actually hurt me more than it helped me, because my body, even just somebody massaging me, my body responded as if I had been beaten and bruised. So my body just does not respond correctly. Like my blister on my thumb is having a really hard time healing. If you can see that, it's having a really hard time healing, and my thumb is still really swollen. Completely over exaggeration. It's drama. My body is like a drama queen, and I'm just like, can we stop now? That would be great. So, but that's why I do the research I do, and that's why I pay so much attention to the medical world, and that's why I educate myself, and that's why I'm so concerned about this topic, and that's why I want to share and explain why I have the concerns I have. It's not from like a place of just vapid drama queen wannabe. It's because my life is literally on the line with the decisions I make in regard to this. I wish we had a place that would do some of like the clay body stuff, but there's just nothing here, and it would literally be a 4 to 5 hour round trip drive to go somewhere like that, and I'm still, because of the vertigo, not able to drive myself. So it would take somebody else having to go with me, which means I would have to pay for somebody else to go to the spa, which would be completely not possible. Or it would cost my husband a day of work, which is absolutely not going to happen. So I deal with it with good friends, and I have a really good support system here, and my brain functions great, so I can distract myself on bad days, and that's a blessing, because some people I know that have RSD also have some other issues, and they can't distract themselves like I can. So, you know, I'm not as bad as most people with this. And it was Saturday was just like a huge fluke. It never really happens like that. I'm hoping it's not things worsening, but we just have to wait. Everything's a wait and see with this disorder. It sucks. That's where I am. But that is why when I see these type of stories and these people that just nonchalant talking about people's health and a huge what could be life or death decision, I take it very seriously. And I want to address it, and I want to talk about it, and I want to hope that someone runs across this that has been attacking other people for being hesitant, and watch this and see why I'm hesitant, and understand that this is not just a 15-minute trip to Walgreens for me. This is a huge question mark, and there are valid reasons that people have concerns, and we need to pump the brakes and stop belittling people, and understand that whatever side of the fence you fall on, this needs to be an individual decision that you make based on your knowledge of your body and your health with your physician. So it's just like, come on, people, get it together, you know. But that's why I'm so passionate about this, is my health. And I know so many more people that have this that are worse than me, and I'm so concerned. And I've seen people with this condition get the vaccine and their bodies, I've seen 2 pass away, but I've seen their bodies completely worsen. Like the RSD amplifies to the point to where life is just insufferable for them. And I am not willing at this time, with the limited knowledge that I have and the limited amount of research that I can even try to access, even with a VPN, I'm not willing to say I know enough about this to make a decision for my life. I just don't. So it's very important that I tell my story, because if more people would tell their story, these people that jump online and are hostile and belittle people and call them negative names out of ignorance of what that person is going through in their life, and out of the willful ignorance and the desire just to not care about someone else, just to put them in a category, in a box, and slap the top, and that's where you need them in your brain, and not to understand that that person deserves just as much value as your own life. I want people to start valuing each other again and start communicating and understanding. Like, I don't know if any of you went and watched that Tim Pool episode with that Rugged Man guy or have seen any of the excerpts from it, but that man was a literal butthole from the moment from the moment the cameras went on to the moment they went off. And it was just the amplification of how people communicate these days, especially if somebody has a different view and you think they're intolerant. And it was such an aha moment. Like, it was hard to watch, and I actually even was like, Tim, stop this show. Stop. I was just constantly messaging, stop this show, stop this show, stop this show. Because it was giving a platform for the wrong thing. But then I thought, something, no, let it go, because this is exactly what it's like trying to have a conversation in this day and age. And people need to see this. They need to see that one side is just trying to communicate and is confused and is trying to find a thread of similarity so that they can bond, and the other side just wants to demean and berate and call you names and say you're racist and you're stupid. And so it was just it's so important that we start seeing true behavior for what true behavior is. It's not a cause. It's not a cause. It's not a political movement. It is somebody being a stupid, belligerent fool and thinking that pain is more important than understanding. And they just love to dole out that pain. It's a fix for them. And there is no way to justify that behavior and that lifestyle. No way. And it happens, it's not just the left liberals that do it. It's on both the extremes, on both sides of the aisles behave in this manner. And there's no justification for it. And that we've got to stop allowing the ignorant, nasty people in this nation to run the show. And yeah, you might think I'm being judgmental by saying ignorant and nasty, but if the people I've seen throwing Molotov cocktails and justifying murder, these people should not be retweeted and supported and say, yes, brother, I'm on your side. We should start talking about that and saying, no, we're not going to support you. And, and we're going to talk. When we see you online spreading this nonsense, we are going to speak up and say, this is nonsense. Stop. Instead of going, well, I better not say anything. They'll dox me. Well, honey, if somebody wants to find you in this day and age, they're going to find you. So just get over that fear right now. But we need to learn that we still need to speak up. Even though it's probably going to be a hard conversation and it's going to end up being not a fruitful one, we still need to be heard and we still need to make noise, because if we don't just, we become a place filler anyway. But if we stop trying, we're not even going to have a place at the table. We've got to just keep talking, keep the dialogue, try to communicate, keep making people aware that there are others in this world, and we don't have to be mirror images of each other. We can be different without being all these nasty things that you think we are. So different is not a deficiency. I don't understand why people think it is. I can't get a flu shot. I can't get an pneumonia shot. I will swell up like the Michelin Man for 2 weeks and my heart will take on fluid. I can't do it. I have valid issues and my body is absolutely crazy. And there's no funding, there's no research for what I have. So literally I am the test specimen. I am the guinea hog, the guinea pig. I am the guinea hog. And but people, we've got to become more critical of the information that we're being fed. We've got to understand that these hyperbolic headlines are not what's in the article. Read the article, challenge the article, see who's writing it, see what they're spawning on Twitter, see how they're responding to people, see what agenda they're pushing. Start trying to see the whole story instead of just one page. Read the book so that we can start to understand how to interact and be heard again, because there's over half of our nation is sitting silently going, I know what the crap just happened, but apparently I don't live here anymore. Just pay taxes and pay for everything, but I don't live here anymore. You know, person that looted Gucci has more rights than I do. Probably a bigger following online. And it's just like, when did that become okay? When did that become the status quo? And why are we not talking about it? Why are we not talking about the fact that everybody wanted to defund the police until the rich white men that own the Gucci stores started getting looted? When are we going to start talking about that? So the people that think they're doing all these great things and defund the police and they got this support, well, you know something, your support bailed on you the moment you took a penny out of their bank account. So think about where you think that support is and how valid that support is, and who you're really working for, and who is really taking up your cause. Because I think you're just out there, 15 of you out there, and because you got a little money from somebody, you think you're special. But at the end of the day, they would drop you like a hot potato if you take a penny out of that rich white man's account. So I'm sitting here going, you think you got power because you got their support, but that person is just someone who's willing to pay anybody to create havoc. And it may not be a white man, but odds are it probably is, the way this, the way the upper echelon is made. But whoever it is that's fueling that and then cutting the funding the moment that they lose a penny out of their wallet, they're useless. They're useless pieces of flesh that are making this nation absolutely fall to the wayside. I mean, I never thought, even if I had all the money in the world, I would never wake up and go, gee, let's see if I can find a motley group to pay to destroy 3 neighborhoods today. And like, no one in America has a problem with that. Or we can't talk about it. Because if we have a problem with our nation being destroyed, we're bigots. And I'm tired of people attacking me online because I'm white. And they'll immediately, get so many nasty messages. And it's like, stop. If you want to talk to me, but stop sending me nasty messages that are like 5 pages long. It's exhausting. I can't read them. They're looting this country away to nothing. And the thing that they're stealing is not the goods. The thing that they're stealing is our hope that we're safe in our own nation. And people are like, you're not mad that Rittenhouse got off? No, because by the way the law is written and what occurred, watch the whole trial, get all the facts, and then what occurred was self-defense. It was pure self-defense. It was not an ideal scenario. And I'm one of those people that's on the fence of, should he have been there, should he have gone, or should he have not? But then again, I'm sitting in America where I am blessed beyond anything, because one day, younger people, when they had an option of, should we do this or should we not, they did it. So I can't constantly say, well, he shouldn't have been there participating in something that was affecting his neck of the woods, because at some point we all have to deal with what's affecting our neck of the woods. And it's not always going to come up roses. It's going to be difficult. So I can't really put that, offset that judgment using that logic, because that logic is not really applicable all the time. But if you look at the law, it was self-defense. And then they're like, oh, really? You're not concerned with, and this is what I get all the time, you're not concerned with black people losing their life? There were no black people shot by Kyle Rittenhouse. Yes, there were. He killed Jacob Blake. Jacob Blake was shot by police officers, and he's not dead. He's still alive. He's in a wheelchair, but he's still alive. No, he's not. Yeah, he is. You remember when the VP went and visited him in the hospital? Do you watch the news? And then they're like, oh, really? You're just racist. I'm racist. I'm sitting here and I'm going, yes, I'm concerned about people that lose their life in ways that can be prevented. I'm super concerned about that. because every life is precious. You know what I'm also concerned about? I'm concerned about the fact that nobody, out of all the 2 years of the racial profiling that we've had by the news and the media, we have had no one come up with any way to go in and help stop the needless dying of children in Chicago. So do we really care? Like, I look at the media and I'm like, they're telling me they care. But do they really care if they have to wait for weeks and weeks and weeks to have one story about a specific death that fits the narrative, when they could have shown you faces of precious little angels that were gunned down playing on their little Tykes playground equipment in their own front yard? Do they really care? Because if you care about life, you care about life. It doesn't matter whose life or in what category it falls. You care about life. And the potential that each of those children could have met haunts me. And you know, people ask me all the time, why has our nation gotten to such a deplorable status? Because we've turned mothers into executioners. And we've killed 36% of our own population. And who knows the minds that have been murdered because they were an inconvenience, or because they were too scared to look at other options, or they were in a place where financially that was just the best fit because there were programs to pay for it. Who have we lost because of that? And how can we have a nation of families, and how can we say that America loves and supports the nuclear family, and that it's important in America that you take care of your children, when America by far has turned more women into opportunistic executioners? Now, I know that there are certain health situations and legal situations in which someone was harmed or has an issue that it's going to be necessary. And I am not one to, like, overlay my judgment that far. But when you are a female that has had more than 2 or 3 abortions, that is done because it's easy. There are certain issues where you can find yourself in need to perform such a heinous task as it is. But to find yourself in that precarious situation 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I mean, at some part, at some time you've got to realize, you put your seatbelt on when you drive, you put a bike helmet on when you ride a bike. At some point you have to realize what is causing that and understand that there is a preventative measure that is much easier than what you're doing to yourself, and it will not put a little life in the balance. And we've just, I don't know, it's just like America has become the nation where it's so easy to fall into a negligent but justified mindset. And that's why we've got politicians that are rampant felons. You can just look at their life and the video evidence. They're rampant felons. But they stand behind a podium and wish death upon people that they're supposed to love and want to unify. Not a fan. And I'm not lying. I'm a very nice person. I want the world to come back together, and for people to take that place as a society instead of as groups of hateful people. But if Joe Biden had knocked on my door this morning and said what I read in his White House briefing, if he had knocked on my door and said that to me, you know what I would have said? And I'm a nice person. I want to be nice to everybody. And I want the world to go around, and I want everybody to know that they all make it go around their own special way. And by God, we're all beautiful. But if he had said that, if he knocked on my door and said that to my face this morning, I would have said, well, fuck you, Joe. Got no use for you either. And I would have shut my door. And to sit here and be the person that I am, who has helped pull so many lives out of the ditch and get them off of drugs and get them out of domestic situations and get them out of prison and restructure and make them positive members of society, to have tried so hard to make this world a good place, to know that I have someone who is an elected official above me that discredits my life and my judgment call for my own body so greatly. How'd that happen in America? It happened the same way that Hunter's laptop got forgotten. It happened in the same way that Hunter just happened to be dancing naked in front of his niece. It happened the same way that we just happened to have pictures of Hunter with his crack pipe. It got to be so out there and so well known and in your face. And the shock wore off to the point where people just stopped caring. It became normal. And it should never become normal to be this degrading to other people. Especially people that are struggling medically with this decision. And you just stand up and say, well, you know, basically because of your stupidity, you're going to die a horrible death this winter, and I told you so. No, Joe, that's not how this works. That is not how a virus works. That is not how this works. That's not how humanity works, and that's not the job of a politician. So I don't know where you got off the bus, but it was the wrong stop. Oh, I fully believe this is evil, good and evil having a battle out. I fully believe this is, yeah, I fully believe, you know, I've read the end of the book. I know how the story ends. I know what's going on, and I fully believe this is it starting. And I still think we have the free will to turn it around for a little while. But we're definitely, the bus is definitely driving toward the ditch. And now he said it. And he said it, and then they published it on the White House press release thing, and then the chief of staff, or that Klein guy that I retweeted and said, the truth's the truth. That is not truth. That was a narrow-minded perception of what he thinks may happen. But what scares me the most is when you're thinking like that, there's part of you that's preparing for that. And why is he preparing for that when other parts of the world are seeing these, COVID almost disappear? And I can't access those journals from that world. I can't access articles unless I get my VPN out. And so he's limiting what information we have. He's limiting good information. He's limiting information from areas that have all but eradicated COVID. And then in the process of limiting that information that could save lives, then he turns around and wishes death upon half of his nation. Horrible death. And part of me just wanted to go, I'm not part of your family. Why do you hate me so much? Because, you can tell there's no love in that family. I'm not part of your family. Why do you hate me so much? And, and I look at that family and I'm like, it's just full of trauma. It's full of disgust and despair and trauma. And they're all actors. Everything they do is it's a projection. They've prepared for it. And even the hand movements are planned. And I just sit there and I wonder how much do you have to police yourself out of the knowledge that you need to police yourself before every move and every word you say is pre-planned? Because you can't tell me what he said was not meant to be said. Now, that was a doozy. So does he want it to happen? Because normally when you voice concerns like that, he was gleeful when he said it. What scares me the most is he was gleeful when he expressed it. It was like done so in a gleeful manner where he was like arrogant upon the fact that my good little pupils are going to be fine, but you, you're going to have a horrible, horrible winter of death. I told you. My patience was wearing thin. I told you. And so that's my concern, is what mental capacity, well, what's left of it, what mental capacity do we have up there? What kind of person, and what is he wishing upon the people that put him in that position of power? And what is he wishing for the people he thinks didn't put him in that seat of power? And I'm just disgusted by it all, and terrified, and fearful. But I'm also aware that me and millions of other people are the backbone of this nation. And if we stand up and talk, and we stand up and start disagreeing, not violently, not physically violently, but if we stand up and make sure we're heard and say, hey, we're not okay with this. This is not the way our nation goes. This is not what America is. We don't want it to go down that road. Pump the brakes, Bubba. You know, if we start to do it, if we do it and we do it together, our voices will overwhelmingly have to be heard. And can we not change this? Because look at what 17 to 21% of the population, look at the heck they start on Twitter that shapes the world. Why can't we shape the world positively? Why can't we get out there positively? I mean, really, if 17 to 21% of the world on Twitter can have that much of an impact, start opening your mouth. Start talking. Get a YouTube account. Get a Rumble account. Get on some platform somewhere. Start making it known that we're not hateful, despicable people. We are people that simply want to be able to live a life that is not heavily, orchestrated by someone else, and we want to be able to make our own decisions. And we're not racist. We're not bigots. We are simply people that are trying to make it through this world. And if we can all stand up and positively and effectively represent who we are, and not feed into the anger and the violence, and we've got to get out there, because we're getting swamped, people. It's all propaganda, and they believe it. Like, I mean, I've met people that don't know me, and I've gone to big cities, and like 3 or 4 years ago, I went to Michigan. I went to Detroit, Michigan. And my little friend that was with me, who grew up in a big city, was terrified. I needed to go down to the corner store to get some stuff that I did not want to buy from the hotel and pay God how much money for. So I said, well, you run me down to the corner store. And she's like, I really didn't want to leave the hotel when we got here. Well, it'd be okay. It's just, you can see it from the hotel lobby. And she's like, oh, okay. So we run down to the corner store. We walk in. And, like, there's a little bit of everybody in there. We were 2 white girls in there. There was a whole, like, Middle Eastern Indian family in there with their little kids. And they were adorable. That little girl had the little wrap dress on. She was adorable. And then there was probably 5 or 6 black or African American people in there. And she was terrified. Because when we walked through the door, everybody turned around and looked at us. I got hair. And I could feel her quake in fear. And so when they turned and looked at us, I went, hey, y'all, who out here didn't plan their Walmart trip appropriately and now is in need of something that they're going to have to pay twice as much for? And they were all like, yeah. I was like, dadgummit. I was like, we all need to, like, create a land, like a phone tree, so we call each other, remind each other, and they're like, true. And one guy was like, I like your accent. And I was like, oh, thank you. And so it was, completely great reception. And she was freaking out. And so I've always been able to go into places and to, like, bring people together and get conversation. And we all smile. Well, guess what no longer happens no matter how hard I try anywhere I go? I cannot start a conversation. I cannot get people to smile. Cannot get people to respond to me appropriately or in any positive manner. They're mad at the freaking world. And I didn't do it. I know, because it's people I've never met. So I didn't do it. They're mad at the way the world's going, the way it's spinning, things that are occurring. And whether or not they've picked a team, they just scowl constantly. And they take it out on everyone they come in contact with. And that's how the enemy is winning this war. They're turning this nation into a negative place where nobody cares anymore. Or they don't care, and they don't have compassion to see anybody in a harmful place of hurt anymore. And that's how they're winning. They're turning us into numb people that don't mind seeing our neighbor hurt, that don't mind seeing our neighborhoods gunned down. We can become cold and neutral to these heinous events. And that's how they're winning. We've got to bring our heart back in this nation. We've got to bring people back together that care. Even a smile, a quick word of positivity when you pass somebody on the sidewalk. These things change people's days, which change their lives, which change how they interact with other people, which change someone else's life. And we've got to get back on that positivity track. Just go to the grocery store. Humanity at its worst. Is it not? Oh my gosh. Yeah. And I mean, I've been so sick that I've done Walmart pickup orders, and my husband picks it up with we have one delivery boy. He'll deliver it. But the last time I was in Walmart, because I have to use a rolly cart, I am someone that takes up more space because of my rolly cart. You may have to walk around. But if you're able-bodied and you're young and what's the point? I mean, it's not going to kill you. And so normally if I cause somebody to have to step out of their way I say, oh, I'm sorry, excuse me, I apologize. And it used to be people say, it's okay, honey, it's okay, don't worry. Now people go, yeah, well, at least you're sorry for it. That was me trying to be nice, because you were being a butthead about having to take an extra step around somebody that struggles to walk. Be thankful you have legs that work. And shut your mouth. That's what I really wanted to say, you know. And before my kids went to school, at the start of every school year, we had a whiteboard by the door. And I have pictures of it on Facebook somewhere. I caught it and I said, I'm so glad I caught it. There were rules for school. Talk to the kids that no one else talks to. Do not be negative on purpose. Smile. Especially when you see someone else that is struggling and is about to cry or frown, you know, smile. And my kids were like, Mom, why do you do this every year? And I'm like, to drill it into you. This is how we behave. And now my children are in their mid-20s, and they still do those behaviors. It became part of the core of who they are. And now we've got adults that can't even follow those rules. So I'm like, you know, your Nintendo must have raised you. So. Yeah, I've noticed that as you get older, you get treated worse. And used to be I could carry myself, when I was big and burly, I could carry myself in a manner where people would part around me. Even though I'm a very friendly person, the way I carried myself and all of my ink, people would part and let me through. They're like, we don't want any problem with her. And now it's almost like people will bait you into an argument. And I'm just like, sitting at like Walmart or Walgreens waiting for a Finagrin prescription refill, and I'm just sitting there, and there'll be people across the other chairs that are not close be like, look at her shoes. Do you think she knows how ugly her shoes are? I'm right here. I can hear you. I don't wear them for beauty. I wear them on days that I can't, my nerves are hurting, and anything that touches my feet hurt, so I wear these shoes on days that my nerves are not right. So you caught me on a day where my nerves are not right. On the other days, I wear Ariat cowboy boots, if you want to know. And I'll think, okay, well, we're going to talk now. And then they'll go, pfft, like I was not allowed to talk to them. And I'm like, who raises these people? Oh, am I buffering? But I don't know. America's got to get better. I'm going to shut up, because my big thing is, out of all the information I read you, please start to get a bigger look at things, a more in-depth look. Please start to speak up appropriately, not violently, appropriately, but with a justified concern. Know your facts. Have a foundation for your argument. Understand why it's important to start voicing your concerns, because y'all, if our leader, It's a word to say. If our leader can get up and say stuff like that behind a podium in front of our national insignia, the only hope for this nation is the people that are willing to stand up and go, that was not necessary, and we are not happy with you, and we really wanted unity, but we're not going to have it if you keep doing this. We're going to have to restructure, and we're not going to be happy with that, and we need to be calling our representatives, calling our congressmen and women. We need to be politely yet adamantly telling them this is not going to happen. We are not going to have a president that disrespects over half of his nation. We're not going to have a president who has so many shortfalls and concerns get up there and tell us how we're supposed to structure our lives and take a medical, and will become part of medical research, and that's not even legal. You cannot be coerced into medical research. And I told my husband, I said, if they walk towards you at work with a needle because you've had Lyme disease, and he has some of the same issues that I've had with now with vaccines, leave. Because at the end of the day, when the chips truly fall, when whatever plot is discovered and we all figure out what in the heck was going on, because Dr. Peter McCullough does not even know what the heck's going on. Go watch him and Joe Rogan. When we do finally figure it out, there's going to be a lot of people that are held accountable for forcing people to make very bad health decisions. And just the myocarditis issue that's happened alone, do you know in 20, 30 years, our male population is going to greatly be reduced? Because myocarditis, very few people come back from that. It's a long-term, lifelong issue you have to deal with, and it's debilitating in most instances. Do you know that in 20, 30 years, because of that, the hundreds of times the percentage of normal myocarditis that is presenting in young men now after this vaccine, our population is going to be so cattywampus from the men that we will have lose due to early deaths due to myocarditis. You can go to the VAERS and see that. It's just crazy. And the long-term effects, think about this. But I'm just like, I've told my husband, do not take it. The people that will finally probably at some point be held accountable, you know, there will most likely be some kind of reckoning due to all of this. And I just hope that not too many people suffer horrible outcomes because of taking or not taking. That's my concern, is the people that are going to be hurt in some way, either way. It's concerning to me. But I was like, we will find another way to live. I'm not playing Russian roulette with my life or my husband's life. Which, with our health issues, that would be what it basically would be. So, but you're not supposed to be able to coerce people into medical research, and it is still being researched. This is still human trials. But the words, just like the hyperbolic titles, the way they frame things in the words, they get just enough flex in there where they can discredit whatever thought you have. Oh, no, that's not what we meant. We meant this. Or, oh, you just misunderstood that. We actually meant this. Or, you know, the same way they have recreated how words, you know, certain words in our day-to-day conversations. Like, racist is no longer someone who is, you know, racist to get someone because of a skin color and bloodline per se. Racist is just someone who acts above you in a place of power or privilege. That's not related at all to the original denotation. Not at all. You know, they're starting to twist these words. And it's the same thing they do. They use these big hyperbolic statements that they can weasel out of. But that's why I'm trying to do the research. And I implore you all to do your research too. Dig deeper, learn more, find out more, ask bigger questions. Look for patterns of behavior. Look for people that are linked in with each other. Something's going on. I want to know what it is. Yeah, I mean, gaslighting has become basically all our politicians, especially Jen Psaki. I call her Jen Suck a Big and Psaki because she's the biggest liar I've ever met. I'm just not even sorry for saying that. She's just the biggest liar I ever met. But that is legit. All that Jen Psaki and Biden do is gaslights. And it's like the other night he got up there and he was like, I'm going to make a statement that I didn't even know if I had the authority to make. You should be well prepped on this job by now, sir. After 50 years in politics, you should know the parameters of what you can and can't do fairly well. That freaked me out. He said that for the cleanup work on the storm damage. Freaked me out. Oh, and then look at Peter McCullough. If you Google Peter McCullough, he had an article, a YouTube video come out in the last couple of days. I think it's with that Brett Weinstein guy. I can't identify him. I think that's him. Where he was contracted to write an article, because he's like the most published doctor in history. He was contracted to write an article because the article didn't say what they wanted it to say, and showed some very inconvenient truths that politically did not need to be shown. They removed it, and the contract for him was that it goes into the historical medical data, and it is there for always. And so he's like, I'm suing them, and it was like in Sylvie or in I don't know, it starts with an E, the company that contracted the research. And so he's like, I'm suing them. He's like, because that's information that people need to know that I was contracted to write, so that people would have it, at their fingertips if they wanted to know it. He said, I'm suing them. And when asked why the COVID response has been so erratic, and why there's been so many lives lost, and why the emergency orders and the FAQs for treatment were all taken wrong, medicines were restricted or locked in based with no orders, just fear. Fear overwhelmingly made the rules. The rules were never written down. It was just fear making doctors not want to treat patients. It was just fear. And when he was asked why it all happened this way, and he said, we have about 500 doctors in this nation that know what's going on. And he said the others, he said, don't have a clue, and they're just running on what everybody else is doing, and oh my God, I don't want to lose my license, so don't make anybody mad. And he said, sadly, we've lost more lives because of the inept number of doctors and physicians and nurses that we have in this nation. And he said, to be quite honest, it's doctors and physicians. He said most of the nurses are better than the doctors. To have someone who is so aware of, and is still practicing, is so aware of the medical field, to say that, be concerned, people. Be very concerned. Got me another Chewy out. But I beg of you, dig into Peter McCullough. Dig into India and the flushing of the nose where the virus loads for 3 or 4 days. Got the viral loading. If you can find it. If you don't, get a VPN account so you can find it. Look up the UK study that found that after their immediate vaccine trials that they realized they were killing 2 people to save 1. And that's when they started having questions about the vaccine, and that's when the UK and the news from the UK stopped being played so much on American news. Look into who is being housed in Australia in the camps, because it was supposed to be made for just international flights to board, but now they're actually housing teenagers that test negative every day they're there, but they could have possibly bumped into somebody, maybe. The only people that are not going to these camps are the well-to-do, gated community rich people. Anyone that is accessible by the popo can be grabbed and thrown in, and then you're there for at least 14 days. There have been people, because they've had them in the camp, and then they know where they are, and they're easy prey. They can go back and say, well, we think you might have come into contact with somebody else. We're going to take you back. How are we supposed to live lives if this is the future? How are we supposed to fund a life, make a life, have families? We're not. So what are we going for? What is the aim? Well, I think the aim is a lot of these camp-like installments in places and absolute federal control, and that's why local access to everything is now a no-no, and local people should feel like their voice is never heard because they have to go all the way up here and then they never get an answer. So just shut your mouth and do what we tell you to do, because you're not going to get satisfaction anyway. That's where we're going, I'm afraid. And so I'm willing to go, on the off chance that this tanker is going down, I'm going to speak my piece, and I'm going to ask questions, and I'm going to voice my concerns. And I want everyone else to be hyper aware and start paying attention to these things. I just can't believe that, like, the real issues never get dealt with, but people think that this is such an issue that it took our nation, our leaders, to forcefully inject experimental drugs in everybody, when our leaders can't even figure out how to make normal people stop killing each other in Chicago. But they're supposed to make an entire nation medically well, with absolutely no time for research, no long-term prognosis, a testing period in which all the animals died, and then they go and do the human testing on people, and then they lie and say, oh, but it's an approved, and then they manipulate paperwork, and people think they're actually getting legit vaccines, and but it's still human testing, and there's still people apparently getting saline shots, and people think that our nation is solving this huge Mother Nature biological bomb when they cannot even figure out how to make people cohabitate without killing each other in Chicago. Pay attention. Do not give people powers they don't have. Even if it's wishful thinking, because you're terrified of this. Don't give them powers they don't have. These are just people making decisions. And I guarantee you a lot of them are for power. And we have to start questioning those decisions and making sure that as a nation, for the people are being heard. Not through violence, not through anything like that, but we've got to be heard. Especially when a goddamn president is standing behind the podium, representing our nation, and almost gleefully taking satisfaction in the fact that many people may die this winter. No. Like, I had a whole moment that I was over it. I was over it. And I thought if I acted like his child, I would be in prison for at least 20 years or more, not have a free day to my life, probably wear an ankle monitor. I'm held at such a level, but this man and his family are not. All that to the side, no one should think they should get behind that podium representing our nation and say with such satisfaction that the unvaccinated people that aren't listening to him are going to die. No. I just thought that was horrible. Absolutely horrible. Haven't seen such malevolence since that little man. That hurt my heart to think that our nation is there. And it should hurt everyone else's. Y'all pay attention. And if they're putting the fear in us for winter, they're really going to be pushing. They're really going to be pushing to make a point. So let's all have an open heart, and the people that are around us in the community, let's all band together and help each other. Yeah, we're in a time of awakening, absolutely. I feel like this is more of an accountability awakening. We're forced into it, and the people that don't make the cut, I don't even want to know what's ahead of them. But yeah, this is definitely a time of awakening, and it's an accountability time. It is a good and evil battle. And I am just not willing to sit down and say that what I'm seeing happen is okay, and I hope that many of you are not as well. And to fight for a cause does not mean you have to get up and be violent. Look at the 17 to 21% on Twitter that just brain vomit and annoy each other to the maximum capacity so that their words eventually take on meaning. Come on, people. Let's do it. The 17 to 21% on Twitter can do it that are absolute stupid morons. I mean, really. Then, you know, the millions of us should be able to do this and create, you know, a resonant voice that is heard. So let's get on it, people. I cannot be the only one that is willing to get on here and say these things. You know, I don't wish malice upon anyone. I don't want to harm anyone. But I'm not willing to watch America turn into what it's turning into. And I'm not willing to put millions of my neighbors, millions of my fellow Americans on the chop block to see if they can outlive a virus or a vaccine. Let them choose. Let's not play God. Because Joe Biden, if there's one person I'm sure you are not, it is the big God. I would love to have 15 minutes with whoever handles him. And just be like, really? This is failing tremendously. Like, if they gave awards for failure, you would be the grand champion. So let's stop this. I have to find humor somewhere because it's just a horrible feeling. Yep, our children, our future generations are counting on us. I worry about the world that my children are inheriting. I feel guilty that this is what they're inheriting. There's a lot of bad things that happen on TikTok, but because we know the bad things can happen, there also has to be the avenue for good things to happen. So get on there and have your voice be heard. Literally, if such a small percentage can do this and create a narrative, there are millions of us. Do it. People are like, I don't want anybody to knock on my door and think I'm a horrible person. Well, then don't be a horrible person. Don't do violent, negative, hateful things. Just state, I'm concerned. I'm having an issue with this. This is not the America I remember. I want to make sure, you know, that we are not going down a bad path. I want a better path. I question these things that are occurring. I want to know more, but I'm not allowed to ask. So I'm going to get on here and start a conversation. Let's share information. Let's have a dialogue. Is anyone else having these problems? You would be amazed the power of just communication, and when people see that other people want to communicate and that they will and can find a way to communicate. You don't have to be a bad, horrible, vindictive person and do nasty things to change the world. Positivity and love have changed far more of the world than hate. My goodness, positivity and love have sopped up every disaster that hate has ever made. Yeah, and if I have noticed correctly, the next two generations are almost super conservative because of what they've witnessed growing up. My children are both super conservative, but they also raise them super rural and super cover your own butt and eat out of the woods and fish, you know, the stream, and you know, so they were prepped growing up for this, I guess. Maybe that's why I did it. Maybe that's why I never left my roots, was so that my children would have the knowledge how to live in the woods one day. I don't know. But I've definitely noticed that the generation after my sons, they're young, but they're already on it, going, excuse me, sir, no. Did you read about this, and this that happened at this time, and this society and the downfall? And I'm like, yes. Yes. Reading more than just what you can thumb through on Facebook. Thank you, Jesus. So, you know, and I'm lucky that both of my kids had an appetite to read when they were young. And they read. And my son read the entire history of Russia because he was just absolutely, the landscape and the animals there just kind of drew him to it. But then he was like, the people are a different breed. And I'm like, yes, very much. And so he read all about Russia's military, the intelligence, the moves, and the punishments. And he was like, this is a bad place, Mom. And he got to the point where he actually even wanted a Russian dictionary to learn Russian, because he was trying to understand the books that he was reading that didn't have like a word, an English word that would cover that word. So he would get the Russian dictionary and look it up. And and if he said he needed it, I would buy it for him. And I'm fixing to go to bed too, Annette. Bless your heart. I'm amazed that everybody stayed with me this long. But that natural interest to learn, study, know, question, and like understand the world and what happened before you, what happened after you, what's potentially going to happen after you, and what happened in faraway lands. So lucky that my kids had that desire to know all that. Oh, that's great. So he got into college classes in high school. That's great. I was offered that, and I had finished. This is me bragging on myself. I finished all of my high school credits except for one in 3 years. Yay, go me! And so I decided the last year to. I only needed one credit, and I decided the last year to take all of the animal husbandry, wildlife biology, all of those, waterfowl management, because I was initially going into veterinary medicine. And I did that against filling those spots with college classes. And I did it because I knew I was going to have a long college haul either way I went, and I really wanted to build up my base foundation of knowledge. And I created a waterfowl management pond in my state that has a 100-year no-touch policy that has created a whole brand new home for wood ducks to come to Tennessee. I'm very proud of myself. I drive by it every once in a while and go, yay me. But I had the best year, but I often wondered if I made a mistake. But then both of my children had the option. My son did not, because he was thinking of going into the Marines at the time, so he did not. My daughter did, and now she's in veterinary school. So it takes a very poised young mind to make that jump that young, and that's a good sign. It's a very good sign. So tell them I'm proud of them. Plant the seeds of love. Dusty, you're dead on. You've said several good things tonight. How it's expressed for everyone is different. That's right. The revolution will not be on the television. Get out there and meet your fellow man and get to know people, and let's generate those communities again. Let's start actively interacting with real people again, and remembering why we as a society desire each other's contact. We've lost that, but something is still there. We can get it back. We can revive it. There is a reason why you desire to be with your fellow man and to have contact. And if we can get that back, that's half battle. So this has been a great talk. I should have done the StreamYard where I could pull you in, but I didn't know if I'd feel well enough to be on this long. But today's been better. The shaking has stopped. I'm dead still today. I'm good. Still had to start all the bowel medication up again, because when everything else shorts out, my organs do too. And so my pancreas and my bowels have been kind of like, so I've had to start the medicines back for those. But overall, I've had a good day. I rested good, and I'm fixing to go rest some more. But when I read things that impact me the way that these things did today, I just had to share. You all know, if I find something I need to share, I don't care what I look like or how I feel, I'm going to try to find a way to relate it to you because it's important. So I had to get on here and talk it out. World history. Bless her heart. Talk about a powder keg, especially with everything's going on in the world right now. But that's also a good thing. Maybe she will be hyper aware of what she learns because of what's going on in the world right now. Yeah, I had a rough weekend. And I was really afraid that this RSD flare was going to hang around for a couple weeks like that last one did. That was a sneaky little flare. Matter of fact, my husband looked at me, who is a man of so few words when I film him, and I was like, this flare snuck up on me. Like, I didn't see it coming or nothing. And he will watch. I will make him watch funny YouTubes through the years. And he looked at me and he goes, I'm going to sneak a snag. And I was like, talking to you about serious stuff. And he was like, I'm going to sneak a little snag. So, and you can imagine my big burly husband doing that. I thought that was hilarious. He does make me laugh. He's got the best sense of humor, and he literally, I don't know, he just gets like this when the camera goes on. He's the funniest man, and he's the sweetest guy, and he never sings a song without changing the words. It drives me nuts, but I love the man, and he takes really good care of me, and he was really concerned Saturday. He was ready to drop everything and run me to the hospital if need be, and I was like, just let me sleep. And it did. It just kind of flittered away. I can tell something happened because I'm tired, but it's passing, knock on wood, more quickly than the last flare did. And I think a lot of it is from where I was sick. And this weather here has been horrendous. We've had tornadoes, and it's just been like we've been in a perpetual spin cycle for 2 months. That's great. I mean, that's great. Kids that have that much integrity within themselves to understand this is super important and this is my pathway, they're a rare breed. My daughter's one of those, and if she starts something, she has to finish it. And she got into one of the biggest colleges in Tennessee. It took every bit of my retirement to get her in and started, and because you have to pay in advance. And then she was so young, her grants and loans and scholarships wouldn't come due until over halfway through the first semester, so you had to pay at least half of it in full. Oh my gosh. I mean, I told her, I said, I want empty. I will put a 0 account balance, but once I pay for it, you are going. And I knew once she got there, she's one of those that she has to finish what she starts. She's like me. She's got to finish it. And, boy, for the 2 weeks right before she moved into her dorm, she was freaking out. And I looked at her and I was like, I will knock you on the head and take you down there, and you will wake up in your dorm because you are going. And once she got in there and got moved in, she was fine. And I knew she would be. It was just, that was a very big move for her. And there was a lot on her shoulders. But I knew once she switched gears in her head and got there and got in momentum, she would be fine. And that's how she was. And she graduates in May. And then she will start the entire medical side of the veterinary program, which I think she's going to actually relocate to Georgia before she does that. So she's grown up, just got engaged last year. You know, my boy got married a little over a year ago. So I have grown adults for children, but that drive you don't see in many. So be sure to tell, I mean, as often as possible, be sure to tell them that you're proud of them and how special that drive is and that momentum, because it's not in a lot of our young people now. My husband is, and he acts like the Darlings on Andy Griffith, or the Mulhaneys on Hee-Haw. I drive him nuts. Now you all know why when he's got on his blue work pants and a white t-shirt, and we run by the leather shop in the Amish community. Now you know why all the Amish girls think he's Amish. And then I walk up next to him and I'm like, honey, I think I've got everything. He's like, okay, let's go. And then they're like, he's married to her. But he's just a big burly man of few words. But I'm here to tell you, I would not want to make him mad. You can always count on him. What he says he will do, and he will never default. He will go through with whatever said he will go through with. I would never want to make the man mad. Not at me, like he would never hurt me, but I would never want to see him truly cut loose on somebody. Because the man, he looks like a big old burly man. The man is nothing but muscle from years of swinging an axe and a busting maul. He's nothing but muscle. And I would hate to see him cut loose on somebody. But honestly, he's a teddy bear. I'm the mean one. Oh, goodness. Yeah, the finances are a pain in the butt. What I would tell you to do is for her to start talking to people and to, like, not make it like a scholarship, but just ask if people will donate and support her education. You would be surprised that even area businesses will hand over, several $100s. And if it's like my children never got, like, high school scholarship opportunities, and my daughter only got like one scholarship leaving high school, and that was because the college went back and found that they had not applied one she was due, and the college made the high school apply it. You always see the other kids, we had like 4 kids get split like $700,000, and I was like, are we not sending anybody else to college? I was in the auditorium and people were looking at me, and I was like, are we not sending anyone else to college? And literally half of those kids have dropped out by now. My child's fixing to graduate. And, you know, we're broke, but as a parent, it's all about setting up your kids for a better life. So that's what I did. But I didn't think about that until afterwards. There's so many kids in my area that were taking those college classes that we're actually asking for support. We're telling people about the cost affiliated, and we're actively seeking support. And a lot of them got a lot of support, and that's how they got through it. And for a lot of them, like the first place I would go is be like, go to the newspapers and see if they want to publish a story on her AP journey in high school for X amount of tests paid for or something. You know, start creatively thinking, get those, you know, get the gears working. Twins are like that though. When I was pregnant with Lane, he was originally a twin and I lost the other one. Now, weirdly enough, Lane married a twin, and the twin he married, her personality is vivacious and go, go, go and fix everything, and her twin brother drags. He's dragging everywhere. So twins are just made like that. And I anticipate, because he was a twin and she is a twin, I anticipate that when I become a grandmother, I will have twin grandbabies. That is one of those, oh dear, I foresee that. No gosh, it's going to be a babysitting horror. But we'll get through it. But yeah, start asking those area businesses. It's a really good idea. Start asking friends and family. I mean, door to door knock and plead the case. And if they don't feel comfortable enough handing over money, ask if they will like credit her account at school. Yeah, they do have funds. They do have scholarship options. They do have grants. But you know, if there is a need, get out there and, you know, make her face well known and make her story well known. And people want to see these kids succeed, especially in the climate we have today. And if we need to, you come on here and we'll do something for her here. We will come up with something and do it here. You know, even a little bit helps. And if we can all get together and help, you know, we'll have a smarty pants party and try to generate some funds. Do what we can, right? It's a small world. We need to take care of each other. But, well, I'm going to go let Oscar out, and then I'm going to go to bed. And I'm hoping that I have enough energy tomorrow to finish my trays, which are staring at me. They're dry. The pictures are sealed. I just need to paint or seal the wood. And so I'll get that done. And then I've just got a few little sit down on the couch craft projects. So this is going to be a quiet week for me. My daughter comes in Friday. I think her fiance comes in Saturday because they come from different directions. So they both should be here by late Friday night or early Saturday morning. And I'm just going to, you know, again, I've had both my kids for both holidays. I'm just going to try to enjoy having them because I have to share them with so many people now. It's rare that I get them for both holidays. So, well, Denise, you do not hesitate to ask because, you know, even if it's just a few bucks, if we can all get together and pitch in, we're family, we will. That's what we're here for. And I can even go further than that and run a little campaign locally if I need to. Good night, Dusty. I'm going to bed too. I appreciate everybody that gives me your time. Your time is something you cannot get back. So to me, it's precious that you offer it to me, and I do respect it. And that's why I try to at least have meaningful conversations. And I'm only here because I believe in the power of all our positivity combined. We can change the world and do better as people. So that's why I'm here. And I believe that you all have the potential to change the world too. So, but right now, we all have the potential to go to bed and sleep at least 6 hours. That's the goal. It's okay. It's okay. You don't ever have to feel obligated to be here, but I appreciate your presence. But I'm going to try to do more recorded videos so that I'm going to stress as much to sit with lives and stuff. But I will still be here email me, watersworkload@gmail.com. Hey, if you need me, I will always try to respond. And I'm excited for our plumber gnome to get to his destination, to get feedback. And I sent extra bonuses for the kids as a surprise. So I'll do an update on that as soon as possible. Things are going good. I just had a medical brain fart. It happens. Every day I battle this RSD, and so far I'm 100% winning. So we're getting there. But I appreciate you spending the evening with me, and I love each and every one of you. And I will hopefully check in tomorrow. Expect a video maybe late tomorrow or the next day. Mama Liz going to bed. Bye, guys.